Have you ever wondered if having more money would make you happier? If being famous, admired, celebrated would make your life feel complete? Or if holding power in your hands would finally erase that feeling of helplessness? Modern life teaches us to always aim higher, always want more. But the higher we climb, the emptier we often feel. This is the story of a girl, an ordinary barista, with calloused hands and broken dreams. Someone who was once content with a simple life, until one day, she started craving to become someone else. She thought she wanted more, but what she truly needed was something she had all along. And this is the journey of how she found it again. The barista and the dream of becoming more. A story not just for you, but for anyone who's ever compared, ever longed, and ever forgotten who they truly are. Every morning, she rose earlier than the sun. While the city was still drowsy with sleep, she was already inside the small corner cafe, where the aroma of freshly roasted beans slipped through every crack, gently waking even the most tired souls. She was a barista, not famous, not a CEO. No one knew her name, but she worked with a quiet passion tucked deep inside her heart. Her hands were used to the heat of the steam wand, to the soft feel of ground coffee cradled in her palms. She knew her regulars by heart, the one who liked it strong, the one who always added cream, the one who never spoke but showed up at the exact same time every day. Life wasn't luxurious. Her paycheck barely covered rent and one simple meal a day, but she never complained. Sometimes, she overheard customers talking about successful people, the ones who dared to dream big, who risked everything to change their fate. She would smile quietly, as if those stories belonged to a world far away from hers. For her, a perfectly brewed cup of coffee, a soft thank you, and a peaceful afternoon were enough to complete a day. She didn't know yet that from this humble place, a strange and beautiful journey was about to begin. One rainy afternoon, as soft jazz played gently in the background and only a few customers lingered, she stood behind the counter, wiping down the espresso machine like she always did. Then her eyes paused on a woman who had just walked in. She didn't look like the usual crowd. Her hair was softly curled, her heels glistened under the cafe lights, and an expensive handbag hung effortlessly from her elbow. She smiled with a rare kind of confidence and ordered a latte. But it wasn't the woman's appearance that caught the barista's attention. It was the way her presence seemed to slow the air around her. She looked wealthy, accomplished, like someone untouched by worry. The barista poured the milk, frothed it carefully, and drew her familiar heart shape atop the drink. But this time, something inside her felt different. That night, back in her small rented room, she slipped off her coffee-stained apron, sat down on the floor, and unlocked her old phone. The screen lit up with shimmering images. Young women in elegant dresses, sipping wine, checking in from places she'd never even dared to dream of. Paris, Tokyo, New York. She let out a quiet sigh. Suddenly, the damp, stained walls around her felt unbearably small. Am I living too small? She wondered. The next day, a customer paid with a sleek platinum card. She happened to glance into the woman's wallet. It was brimming with crisp cash, bank cards, and a photo taken on a luxury beach. And in that moment, something stirred inside her, a longing she had never paid much attention to before. I wish I could be like them. She began to imagine. What if she were the one sitting on the other side of the counter, being served instead of serving, ordering fancy drinks without checking the price? What if she wore silk dresses, carried designer bags, traveled the world? Would she be happier? From that day on, every cup of coffee she made carried a quiet uncertainty. The things that once brought her joy, a kind thank you from a regular, the soft morning light through the cafe window, suddenly didn't feel like enough. Inside her, a new dream began to take root, a dream of a different life. Late at night, when the city had fallen asleep and the rain tapped gently on the tin roof of her rented room, she sat curled up by a small window. Outside, the streetlights blurred in the rain, like distant dreams too far to reach. She whispered softly, not sure if she was speaking to someone or just to herself. I wish I could change my life. I wish I could live like those successful women. A moment of silence passed. Then, a voice, soft as breath, echoed in her mind. Not quite a dream, but not fully real either. Your wish has been heard. A life of wealth shall be yours. She spun around, startled, but the room was still dark. The only sounds were the rain and the faint glow of her phone screen. She chuckled nervously, trying to brush it off. Maybe I'm just too tired, she whispered. But the next morning, when she opened her eyes, she wasn't on her worn-out mattress anymore. She was lying on a pristine, snow-white bed, wrapped in silk sheets, sunlight filtering through embroidered gold curtains. She bolted upright, stunned. The room was spacious, luxurious, unfamiliar. On the table, a lavish breakfast spread, and next to it, a brand-new smartphone glowing with a message. Welcome to your new role as CEO. Today's meetings have been scheduled. She rushed to the mirror, and there she was, still her, but transformed. Her hair was neatly styled, makeup subtle but polished, and she wore a tailored suit that hugged her frame with quiet power. Everything, as if a dream had taken shape. That day, a private car arrived to pick her up. A personal assistant greeted her and guided her to a towering glass building in the heart of the city. People bowed their heads when she passed. They called her ma'am. They called her boss. That evening, she dined in a high-end restaurant, with French wine, flickering candlelight, and conversations about stocks, takeovers, and million-dollar deals. And that night, she lay on a bed soft as a cloud, in a penthouse suite overlooking the glittering skyline. A gentle smile formed on her lips. She had finally gotten what she wished for. She had become the woman on the other side of the counter. And in that moment, it felt as if she had touched happiness. What she didn't know was that this was only the beginning. Because once the human heart tastes the sweetness of more, it rarely knows how to stop. In the early days of her new life, she was swept away by the dazzling glow of success. Each morning, she stepped out of a sleek black car with confident poise, and every pair of eyes turned toward her, the young, wealthy, powerful woman who seemed to own the world. Every meeting she led, every signature she made, every phone call she answered, carried a weight that made others tread carefully. She now had everything that, just a year ago, had seemed like a dream too bold to even whisper. A penthouse in the heart of the city, a name people recognized and respected, influence, status, and a position no one dared to underestimate. But amid the sparkling parties and the cold, calculated handshakes, a strange emptiness began to surface. One day, at an international summit, she met a renowned female politician, a woman whose words could shake markets, whose decisions shaped the lives of millions. She looked at the woman, not with admiration, but with longing, a deeper, sharper kind of hunger, the kind she thought she'd already outgrown. But now, it came roaring back, stronger than ever. She's not just rich. She has power. She has a voice. She shapes the world. That night, back in her vast, golden-lit apartment, she sat alone on a velvet couch, the city skyline sparkling outside the glass. And quietly, the question crept in, is this still not enough? Because the truth was, even though money was no longer a concern, even though the very people who once ignored her now bowed and smiled, she still felt like a character in a grand performance, a dazzling role, but never the lead. She didn't just want to run a company. She wanted to run everything, not just to be served, but to be the one who decides how the world spins. And as that ambition rose like a tide within her, she tilted her face toward the sky and whispered, if I could have it all, I want to become the most powerful person alive. And once again, like a breeze sliding through the cracks of reality, the voice returned, gentle, familiar, impossible. Your wish has been heard. The most powerful you shall become. No lightning, no flash of magic, just change, subtle, inevitable. And so, she stepped into a new role, one even grander than before. She was no longer a CEO, no longer just a figure among the crowd. Now, she was the head of an entire nation, a supreme leader, a woman whose single decision could alter the lives of millions. She sat at the center of the Grand National Chamber, surrounded by brilliant minds and men in tailored suits. Every eye was fixed on her. Every voice waited for hers. She had it all: the military, the currency, the law, the media. There was no one above her to aspire to. She had become the image of ultimate power, the embodiment of what humans chase when they dream of reaching the top. And yet, one summer afternoon, as she sat in her glass-walled office that pierced the clouds, she looked out the window. A storm was coming. On the screens in front of her, news footage showed violent floods tearing through villages, fields swallowed by rising water, entire neighborhoods swept away, faces of ordinary people staring blankly into cameras, soaked, stunned, lost. She gave the command. Thousands of workers were deployed. Hundreds of tons of aid were sent out. Planes, ships, communication systems, all rushed into action. But the rain kept falling. The land kept sliding. The wind tore through everything human hands had built. In a strange, quiet moment, she stood still before the map of disaster zones, listening to the rain tapping against the glass. And she felt something she hadn't felt in years: helplessness. All the power she held could not stop a single drop from falling. She couldn't command the water to stop rising. She couldn't order the wind to change course. She couldn't tell the trembling earth to be still. And for the first time in many years, she asked herself, am I not the most powerful being after all? Out there, nature moved on its own terms, unbothered by titles, crowns, or even the dreams of humankind. She began to understand. Some things are beyond grasp. Some forces cannot be controlled. And deep within her, a new longing began to take shape. If nature is the strongest force, then let me be nature. And once again, that familiar voice drifting on the breeze, soft and impossible to deny. Your wish has been heard. You shall become nature. And so, she became nature. No longer flesh and blood. No longer wrapped in the symbols of money or political power. She was the wind, the clouds, the thunder that shattered mountains. She was the river that roared through valleys, the towering peak cloaked in mist, the endless forest breathing with the rhythm of the earth. She could tear a city apart in a single gust of fury. She could raise the rivers, crack the cliffs, summon the sea to scream. She had become what generations of humankind had worshipped, feared, and stood helpless before. Nature itself, untamed, unbound. For the first time, she felt truly free. No one could command her. No one had the authority to restrain her. She needed no applause, no paycheck, no validation. She was part of something vast, ancient, and almighty. But then, one afternoon, as her winds swept across a rugged mountain range, and her rains poured heavily onto jagged cliffs, she noticed a small house, old, faded, fragile, and beneath its leaking roof, an old man, thin, weathered, sat silently under the eaves. The storm raged, her storm. Lightning flashed, her lightning. Winds howled and rain pelted the crumbling walls. But the man did not run, did not curse, did not tremble. Instead, he simply tilted his head upward and smiled, a soft, knowing smile, as if he had seen storms like hers before. She hurled rain against the rooftop, howled wind through the cracked shutters. But the man only closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and whispered something so quiet the sky itself leaned in to listen. In that moment, she, the storm, the mountain, the river, felt still because she had thrown chaos and could not shake the peace in his eyes. He did not try to control her, did not fight her. He simply existed with her, and she looked around at the trees that only bloomed in season, at rivers that curved gently with the shape of the land, at skies that never stayed angry for too long, at oceans that never held on to rage forever. And suddenly, she understood. Even nature, vast and wild, did not try to control everything, even the strongest storm. Past in time, she was not all-powerful. She was simply a part of something greater, some invisible rhythm, some quiet wisdom, something that a fragile human being, with no force, no throne, no title, could live alongside, not by resisting, but by being still within. And in her endless form, a new question began to stir. Could it be that the greatest power is actually peace? And so, she stopped wishing. No more hunger for power. No more need to command nature. She wished only to become stillness. Not the sad silence of loneliness, but the deep, sacred quiet, where nothing needs to be proven, nothing needs to be chased, nothing needs to be more. And once again, that familiar voice returned, soft as a breeze brushing through the mind. Your wish has been heard. You shall become stillness. In that moment, she was no longer wind, nor cloud, nor power, nor human. She became the faint breath of dawn, the pause between two crashing waves, the quiet peace of a child resting their head on their mother's shoulder. She was everywhere, yet unseen, nameless, uncalled. No more applause, no more admiration, no more longing eyes, only a profound peace, untouched by desire or fear. Time passed, or maybe time no longer existed. She didn't count days, didn't yearn for anything. She simply was, until one day, in a quiet mountain valley, she saw a familiar figure, a thin woman, quiet and weathered, holding a small hoe, gently turning the earth to replant green shoots after the storm. It was her, no longer a CEO, no longer a head of state, no longer nature or stillness, just a simple woman, living in the hills, growing vegetables, raising chickens, and smiling whenever the sun broke through after the rain. She had returned to being human, no more needing to prove anything, no more dreams of becoming more, because at last, she understood the greatest strength isn't in controlling the world, but in knowing who you are and being enough for yourself. In stillness, she found herself again, and when she finally embraced her humanness, with all its limits, its lacks, its tenderness, she felt free, truly free. Not the kind of freedom that comes from power, but the kind that blooms quietly, from peace within. And from that day on, the voice never returned, because she needed no more wishes. She already had everything, when she knew that being herself was always enough. And so, the journey came to an end, not with applause, not with glory, not with power, but with a quiet smile and a heart that no longer longed to become anything else. She, the girl who once wished to be everything, in the end, only needed to be herself. You see, sometimes we spend our lives wishing to be someone else, richer, smarter, more powerful, more free. But the farther we chase, the more we run, the more we lose ourselves. Happiness doesn't come from how much we have or who we are in the eyes of others. It comes from this, the quiet peace of being able to accept ourselves fully in every single moment. So if you're tired of constantly comparing yourself to the world, maybe it's time to pause, to listen, because maybe what you're searching for isn't out there. Maybe it's been inside you all along.